Hello everyone and welcome back to Very Cherry Cakes. Today we are discussing coloring royal icing, and I'll just walk you through how I set up my area and how I add colors to my royal icing. First, we will set up our area to make sure that this process goes a little bit smoother. The most important thing we need is, of course, our royal icing, and I will link a few royal icing recipes in the description box below. Next, make sure that you have chosen a color palette. This will make it a lot easier for you to decide if you need to let a few of the darker colors mature the day before you start flooding your cookies. I also like to gather a few small bowls so that I can mix my icing before placing it into my piping bags. Make sure to also have a bowl of water handy so that you can start thinning down your icing and so you can decide what consistency you'll need to flood and outline your cookies. I like to use droppers to control the amount of water that goes into my icing, but you can also use a spoon for this part. I also keep a little bowl of bag ties or clips next to me so that I can make sure I have something to close my bags with. My preferred method is using the clips. You will also need some scissors to cut off the tips of your piping bags. And a few spatulas to make sure that you can stir your icing to the right consistency. You will also need piping bags. Here I have tipless piping bags, and basically what that means is that these bags do not require tips. You can just cut the end of the tip to start flooding or outlining your cookie. Here is a Wilton piping bag. In these bags, you use a coupler and insert the tip into, and sometimes people say that you have better control for this, but just use whatever you feel most comfortable using. The next thing we will cover is adding water or consistency of your royal icing. Before I begin, I like to insert my bag into an empty glass to hold the bag and to make sure that I have something holding the bag once I'm done deciding the consistency of royal icing that I will be using. As far as adding water and the consistency of your icing, I feel like that's a little bit of a controversial subject because all of us like to work with different consistencies. First, I like to start off with a little bit of water at a time to make sure that I can see if I want thick icing or royal icing. While you're mixing in water, make sure to bring up the icing a few times with your spatula. Most likely, the way that it's running off the spatula is how it'll run out of the bag once you insert it into the piping bag and start piping on your cookies. Once you have inserted all the icing into your bag, make sure to push it all the way down. Now here, some people actually tie a knot, but what I like to do is I like to just twirl the whole end of the bag and twist it. I also like to clip it with the clips because I feel like it's easier, but if you feel more comfortable using the little bag ties, then that's totally fine. At the end of the video, you'll see how I like to rest my piping bags. I'd like to use a big bowl that I can just rest the piping bag upside down to make sure that once you cut it, it doesn't start spilling into the rest of your table or onto other cookies. Next, we will discuss adding color. Like I mentioned in the beginning, it's a very good idea to already know what your color palette is before you sit down and start mixing all your colors because it just makes it a lot easier process for you. When you start to add colors, make sure that you add a little bit at a time so that you can avoid having to add thick royal icing and get the consistency that you want at the end. Also, please remember that this is a long process. For the sake of the video, I sped up the video just so that you could get an idea. But this process took approximately 50 minutes and I only mixed 4 colors. Now we will discuss letting your colors develop and when to start mixing your colors. I usually like to mix my colors the morning of the day that I will start to outline and flood my cookies. Let's take this color for example. I'm trying to make a darker pink that looks a little bit vintage and not too bright or neon. So here I added a few of the drops of the darker pink, and I'm not very satisfied with how it came out, so I added ivory to quote unquote vintage the color. This is a color that I like to start in the morning, and I let it rest for a few hours so that it can develop into a darker pink, but not a neon pink. Now let's discuss dark colors. Dark colors are the colors that I like to do at least one day ahead. For example, the black, the dark red, or any dark blue or dark shade, because the more time you allow it to rest in the color with the icing, the darker and the better result you'll get. Please keep in mind that these are just suggestions and this is the way that I do it, but definitely try out a few different things and see what works for you. Also, keep in mind that if you do pre-mix your colors and place them into a bag too early, there is a risk of icing separation, where the sugar and the liquid that you have added into your icing will start to separate. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope that this answers a few of your questions. And if you do have any additional questions, don't forget to leave them in the comment section below. Bye!